These are the things I would recommend to anyone who has a creative practice they want to grow or a creative goal they want to meet in 2024. I kept making art, but I stopped touching my Instagram. I didn't make art every day of this year, but to me, it doesn't matter that anybody else but me is satisfied with the work that I created this year. I even exceeded my goal, and it feels absolutely amazing. I'm also feeling like I'm ready for the next challenge. My unpopular opinion is that it doesn't matter how well you do at your goal unless it adds to your life. I'm Camille, your artsy friend. Welcome to my living room. I've tried this exact challenge before, and it actually caused me to stop making art for a few years. Yes. Like I was saying, the way that I did it this time, my rules were pretty simple. Number one, I wanted to make art that represented my daily life. Right, bud? Originally, I was aiming for 365 pieces, right? Where I put the emphasis was on capturing my daily life. So if that meant I needed to adjust the 365 piece goal, then that was going to happen. I went into this knowing that eventually somewhere along the way, I would probably change that goal. That was my starting point. 365 pieces, but if that caused me to hate the process, I was going to change that number. And during the summer, I changed my goal to one art piece per week for the summer. I did the math, came out to 285 pieces in total. That was my new goal after the summer started. Rule number two, I had to have an idea for the piece roughly on the day that it was meant to represent. My third rule, I wanted to track which pieces had been completed, but not when they were completed. So I didn't care if I got it done on the same day or even in the same week, or in some cases, even in the same month. That meant that I ended up with like a backlog. Most of the year I ended up with this backlog of pieces. Hi. This third rule changed the game for me because I could relax. I didn't have to force myself to draw something or finish something if I felt tired or my hand was cramped or life was happening. And that's it. Simple rules with room to adjust and review as the year went on. I have counted all of the pieces that I made this year. I met my criteria for success. I even exceeded my goal, and it feels absolutely amazing. I'm also feeling like I'm ready for the next challenge. I have the receipts. I'm gonna show you every piece I made just for a few seconds, but here's the catch. You gotta tell me in the comments which piece is your favorite, obviously. I'll put timestamps for each of the months in the description. Okay, that's it. didn't make art every day of this year. To some people, I've failed. To some folks on the internet, probably, they'll say, you didn't do it every day. You didn't do it on the day it was supposed to be done. You didn't do it on the day you counted it. And that can discount this achievement. But to me, it doesn't matter that anybody else but me is satisfied with the work that I created this year. I really wanted to build my creative practice. I really wanted to make art making, thinking about art, remembering my inspirations to be a part of my life again. And I got to do that this year. So in my mind, even though the number of pieces I created are less than 365, even though I had a backlog for months sometimes, I don't see it as a failure. I see it as an evolution. I needed to start somewhere, and I got to start somewhere. We've reached the here's what I've learned section. These are the things I would recommend to anyone who has a creative practice they want to grow or a creative goal they want to meet in 2024. Number one, make it easy to show up. For me, all that showing up meant was interacting with my art system, writing something down for the day, taking a moment to reflect and make sure that I'm at where I want to be with my art, with the piece that I'm currently working on, just taking a deep breath, right? So that's all I had to do to show up and make it count as like having done that habit on that day. The second thing I learned was that the more you interact with the habit, the more that it gets done. I used this paper planner that I had as a buffer between me, my chaotic brain, and my life, and my art habit. This thing absorbed so many drops and bumps and scrapes and pencil shavings and dust and honestly grime, but it also helped so much to have something I was using on a day-to-day basis, something I was in, quote unquote, as they say in the planner world. It helped so much to have something I was touching every single day that I could just jot down an idea quick, maybe do a quick sketch, or in several cases for me, I ended up doing a couple of the pieces from January, just finishing them, calling them done from being in my planner. The more that I made notes about it or reflected on it, the more art I wanted to do and the more art ended up getting done. And I can make a separate video if you want. Let me know in the comments below if you want a video about how I tracked in this paper planner. I'll note here, there were months where I didn't check anything off. I think May was probably my worst month. I had a lot going on in May, a lot of work stress, a lot of life stress, a lot of things changing, and I had to take a step back. What happened in May was part of the reason that I readjusted in the summer. There were some days in my planner that I had more than 60 pieces in my backlog. I used these stickers and things that were movable because I was prioritizing interacting with the habit, not putting pressure on myself to finish things in a certain order or by a certain due date. I found that the last time I did this in 2015, or last time I tried to do this in 2015, that put me off of actually completing. I would avoid looking at any of my due dates, looking at any of my lists of things in my backlog, because that didn't fit in the way that I was trying to think about my art. The third thing that I learned, and I think this is super important for any creative person, reviewing and readjusting really matters. I stopped posting the thing that everyone says will kill your motivation and accountability. I stopped posting on social media when it didn't feel good to me anymore because I wasn't doing it for people to keep me accountable. I wanted to be accountable to myself and my practice and the way that I was approaching it. People say that posting will help with accountability, will help you stay consistent, will kind of like force your brain, trick your brain into doing it. But sometime at the end of January, that feeling of that rush of dopamine I got when I hit post had faded, and the feeling that I got when I used social media kind of curdled into this like toxic comparison of my art versus other artists, real professionals on the platform, and it didn't feel good. So I decided to stop doing it. I almost didn't even consciously make that decision. I just kind of avoided it. I kept making art, but I stopped touching my Instagram. The other part of this that I think is really important for this principle of reviewing and readjusting, life is gonna life. Despite what the productivity gods will tell you, we are not robots that can show up every day and do the same thing. In fact, for any creative habit, that's kind of an asset. Also, you don't want to kill your creativity by sucking all the joy out of it and making it about discipline. And there is something to be said for discipline of showing up and making art is important, especially if you want to grow it into something that is a side hustle or something you want to do professionally eventually. You do need to get better at showing up for yourself. But how can you get better at showing up if showing up becomes incredibly, incredibly difficult because of the rules you've put in place? There will be days where you give all the extra energy you have to your job, to your work, to a side project, to your partner. And on the flip side, there could be days where something incredibly fun comes up, incredibly spontaneous, and that ends up inspiring you to make something about it. If you have a creative hobby, these things are going to intrude on the time and energy that you have for your non-working hours of the day. That's just a fact of life. My unpopular opinion is that it doesn't matter how well you do at your goal unless it adds to your life. If your new thing adds stress or makes you incredibly anxious over the long term, like over months and months, then maybe it's okay that you don't do it. All's that to say, as long as you keep interacting with it, prioritizing progress and interaction over perfection, you're going to get better at the thing. You can do anything you set your mind to, but just make it what matters to you. The thing that you set your mind to doesn't have to be the output. It can be the process. So let's say you're like me. You have a thing that you've always wanted to do. A thing you've always wanted to have more of in your life. I think we all have those. There are some analyses that you need to do, like asking, why aren't you already doing this thing? What's holding you back? And do you actually have room physically, mentally, emotionally for doing this thing? But after that analysis, there's the actual doing the thing. What I learned this year, what kept coming up for me, was that I just had to start. Starting, for me, is where I struggle. Starting was a catalyst for me that actually made my brain crave closure by finishing the thing. And lastly, I want you to hear me when I say this, so come on in a little closer. You're a lovely human. You are more than an amalgamation of your goals and habits. You're loved. You're creative, and you can do the thing. So let's make next year more creative. You can do it. I can do it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. All right. There's a dog barking in the background.